Markets are officially open for trade, but much of the attention this morning is remembering September 11th, 2001. Kenny Polcari, partner and chief market strategist at Slate Stone Wealth, joins me now to share his first-hand experience. Kenny, good morning.
Good morning to you.
So 9/11/2001, you were at your firm, ICAP, right. 55th floor of the second tower.
Tower 2.
Tower 2.
Smack
Take
right
me through
in the
that
middle
morning.
of the building.
Yeah.
So while I worked here on the floor of the exchange during the day, I had my office there. And so every morning I would go to that office, as did the guys that worked with us. And so that particular morning I got there, typical 6:45 in the morning, going through my papers of the day before. It was the end of the August month. I had all these bills on my desk to go through. The guys came to work. They did their morning work, and they came to my office, and they said, let's go over to the exchange to the luncheon club up on the 7th floor and have breakfast. And I said, I can't go with you guys today. I got too much work to do. You guys go, and I'll meet you over there at 9 o'clock. So they left at 8 o'clock. They take the elevator down, they get down to the lobby, they're walking across the plaza, and it was a gorgeous day out. And so for some reason, one of the guys turned and said to the other two, I'm going to go back up and get Kenny. Now, he could have called me on his cell phone, but I would have said, you're not listening. I can't go. I got too much to do. He knew that. So he actually took the elevator and came back upstairs, came to my office about 8:20. And I looked at him and I thought, what are you doing? I thought you guys went to breakfast. He said, we did, but we really need you to come to breakfast. We want you to come to breakfast. And so, look, I turned around, I looked out the window. It was a spectacular day, and I thought, okay, I'll come back at the end of the day and just do this work. It's only then, only by the grace of God, that I left the building at 8:20. Came down the elevator, walked across the plaza, was here at the New York Stock Exchange on the 7th floor when the first plane hit. But remember, the first plane hit going north to south, way up high on the 110th floor. The trade centers were west of the New York Stock Exchange. And so while we were on the 7th floor having breakfast, I didn't hear it. I didn't feel it. I knew nothing about the first plane hitting. After breakfast, we started to come down to the trading floor. I got down to the lobby, and there was all this commotion going on in the lobby. And I said to the guard, what's going on? And he said, a plane flew into the side of the trade center, and you almost want to laugh because you say, how could that possibly be? They're the biggest thing in downtown Manhattan. It's a glorious day outside. It's not like you can't see them. And then your first thought was that it was a small commuter plane. Maybe the guy had a heart attack, boom, right into the building. He said, no, he said it was a jet. So I thought to myself, well, that's odd. And I came into the booth to call my wife. Now, my wife knew that I had an office in the trade center, and I figured, it's just 9 o'clock in the morning. She's getting her day started. She's not turning around watching TV. But unbeknownst to me, friends of mine that had worked in the city and saw her on TV had already called her, made her aware of what was happening. So she was glued to the TV, and she kept trying to call my office and got no answer. And so when I called and she picked up the phone, she was crying, and I didn't understand why she was crying because I didn't see still what everyone else was seeing. And she started screaming at me and asking me where I was, and they flew a plane into the trade center, and I thought, who's they? I had no idea who Al-Qaeda was. Next thing you know, while I'm on the phone with her, she starts screaming into the phone as she's watching on TV the second plane coming west to east to hit the second building, which was my building, right? Now, the plane came and hit the building smack in the middle of the building, and the explosion came out the east side of the trade center. The east side was right at the New York Stock Exchange, right? I mean, it was towards the New York Stock Exchange. So I was on the phone with her, and she's screaming, and I didn't understand it. And I said, why are you screaming? And the next thing I know, the plane hit the building. There was this tremendous explosion. And even the building here at the New York Stock Exchange, you could feel it rumbled. You could feel the vibration. At that moment, I had no idea what was really going on. The exchange started ringing the fire alarm. Everybody had to evacuate the building. And I said my last words to her that morning were, I have two daughters. They were 9th grade and 6th grade. And I said, I want you to kiss the girls and tell them Daddy loves them, because I had no idea what was going to happen the minute I walked out the door, and I hung up. Now, remember, the cell phones didn't work because the antenna had gotten destroyed. So I had no connection with my wife between 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock by the time I got to Midtown Manhattan. But when we left the building, we walked down towards the East River, and I started to walk north because I live in Westchester County, north of the city. And we got to about Chinatown. I was just at Canal Street in Chinatown when suddenly there was this tremendous well, it was a rumbling, but at first it sounded like there were planes overhead. And then it sounded like they were blowing up the subways, like in Independence Day when they blew up the city. And I thought to myself, at first I thought they were blowing up the subways. And then I had a perfect shot, a perfect look at downtown, and there were the two buildings. And at that moment when that rumbling happened is when the first building, which was actually the second building that had hit, collapsed. And I'm sitting there and I kept wiping my eyes trying to process what I was actually seeing, because it was unbelievable. Now, I was far enough away that I didn't get caught in the storm, in the cloud. But I sat there and I watched it and I thought to myself, that's the building that I was just in. And if it hadn't been for this guy to come back and get me, you and I would not be having this conversation today, because I would have gotten stuck in the stairwell as they were evacuating it. I don't think I would have ever made it out.
And Kenny, I know you shared with me yesterday when we were talking about your journey back home, Westchester, right? Can you take me through that? What it was like to get out of the city that day?
Right. So we walked from here to Midtown, and then I got to Grand Central. And look, remember, everything was closed. The bridges, the tunnels, everything was closed. And I thought for sure I was going to walk home that night. When I got to Grand Central, they had just opened up. There were throngs of people trying to get out of the city. And so they had just opened Grand Central, and they told people, just get on a train to get out of the city. So I went down, I got on the train that was going to take me to my stop, but it was packed shoulder to shoulder, all the seats and people standing in the aisleway shoulder to shoulder. And you know, Grand Central, there's two levels. There's the ground level, and then there's the subterranean level. I'm down in the subterranean level on that train. And you know, when the electric trains first depart the station, there's the blue sparks and the lights flash and all that. And so as the train departed the station, that happened, and you could hear everybody gasp, because at the moment, while that's a very normal thing, people were on edge. It took 12 minutes to go from Grand Central till you get out at 125th Street. And when you get out at 125th Street, the train turns left and then it turns north again. And when it turns left, you had a perfect view of the west side of Manhattan all the way down to the Statue of Liberty on that day, particularly because it was such a gorgeous day. So when we made that left, everybody in the train just kind of leaned over to look out the window to see what they could see. And what they saw was that cloud of, because that by now the second building had collapsed, and so the cloud of smoke just hung over the city. And I'll never forget the gasps in the train car as we looked at it. People crying, people praying. No one was talking, no one was screaming. It was eerily quiet.
And Kenny, 24 years later, how does it feel?
Listen, the day itself is still painful. I had a lot of friends that I lost, and the other part of it that no one really talks about is the people that you knew but you didn't know. So for instance, I got to downtown Manhattan every day at 6:30. When I got off the subway, I got there at 6:30. There's a coffee cart right at the top of Wall Street and Broadway. I would go to the coffee cart every morning. And every morning I would see you and I would see two other guys, because they had the same schedule. We didn't work together. I had no idea what they did for a living, but they always showed up at the same time. And after a while, you see them every day, and I'd say, how was your weekend? How are you? Like that. And then everyone would go on their own way. It was those people, in addition to the people I knew, but it was those people that you never saw again, that you never really know what happened. Did they make it? Did they die? Did they just decide they weren't coming back? And so there was there's this void inside of never really knowing, right? Because when things turned back to normal and the coffee cart guy came back and I still got there the same time every morning at 6:30, they weren't there. Yeah. And so you're forever questioning, right? And so that's one of the issues that I dealt with, kind of like this survivor's guilt, because I thought to myself, I was in the building. Why did I get the chance to leave that day? Yeah. Others didn't.
Kenny Polcari, thank you so much for sharing your story with us so honestly and vulnerably. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.